Good evening, and right before we jump into the main story, I would like to quickly mention that if you would like to watch an exclusive interview with the lead researchers behind the film 2000 Mules, you can do so over on Epoch TV. It's a great hour-long interview, and among many of the topics we discussed was the fact that, at least according to their research, these ballot mule operations were actually funded by Obama-linked NGOs that collectively poured billions of dollars into local insurgencies across the entire nation. If you'd like to check out that awesome interview, well, the link will be right there at the very top of the description box. And now, let's dive into the main topic for today. This right here is the primetime January 6th hearings that are currently being held over in Washington, D.C. This is where the January 6th committee is attempting to present their unifying theory of insurrection that allegedly took place on January 6th of 2021. And while there are many aspects of these hearings that are worthy of discussion, today I want to focus on one very specific claim, a claim that was made in a letter that was actually sent prior to the start of the hearings themselves. Because you see, last month, in the month of May, Congressman Benny Thompson, as well as Congresswoman Liz Cheney, both of whom are on the January 6th committee, they wrote this letter here to a Republican congressman from Georgia named Barry Loudmilk. And in this letter, which was, by the way, dutifully leaked to the media shortly after it was written, these members of the January 6th committee demanded that Congressman Loudmilk explain why exactly he was giving a tour of the Capitol the day before the riot, with the implication being that he may have been doing reconnaissance for the people that eventually entered the building. Here's specifically what part of this letter said, quote, "Based on our review of evidence in the Select Committee's possession, we believe you have information regarding a tour you led through parts of the Capitol complex on January 5th of 2021. The foregoing information raises questions to which the Select Committee must seek answers. Public reporting and witness accounts indicate some individuals and groups engaged in efforts to gather information about the layout of the U.S. Capitol, as well as the House and Senate office buildings in advance of January 6th of 2021. They then went on in this letter towards the end to request a sit-down meeting with Congressman Loudmilk in order to question him about this alleged tour that he gave, which, just for your reference, is not that unusual. In fact, members of Congress routinely give tours of the Capitol. Here's, in fact, Congressman Dan Crenshaw leading Professor Jordan Peterson on a tour just a few months ago. However, whether it's unusual or not, the implication in this particular letter is that Congressman Loudmilk was somehow running a reconnaissance operation by showing people around the Capitol building on January the 5th. Then, just yesterday, during the actual January 6th hearings, the committee went one step further. They released this footage here of the tour itself. And as you can see, Congressman Loudmilk, he's the one there in the gray suit, he's leading a group of tourists around the Capitol complex. And while the video does show Congressman Loudmilk leading a handful of people through different tunnels underneath the Capitol, it's worth mentioning that they never actually reached the main building. However, this is where the two narratives begin to vastly diverge. Because on the one hand, you have the Democrat-led January 6th committee saying that this tour is evidence of something nefarious, given the fact that they claim one of the people in that tour who was taking photos of the complex, wound up back at the Capitol on January the 6th, with the implication being that Congressman Loudmilk was showing him around beforehand in order to somehow assist him. And wouldn't you know it, this is the exact narrative that most media outlets in this country ran with. The idea was that there was something nefarious going on here. However, what many of those stories bury deep down into their articles, such that you have to go maybe 7 or 8 paragraphs deep in order to actually see it, is the fact that Capitol Police examined this tour footage and they concluded that there was nothing suspicious about it. Specifically, after reviewing the security footage of Congressman Loudmilk's tour, the chief of Capitol Police wrote this letter here to the House Administration Committee saying that there was nothing suspicious about it. Here's in fact what the conclusion of this letter actually said, quote, "There is no evidence that Representative Loudmilk entered the U.S. Capitol with his group on January 5th of 2021. We train our officers on being alert for people conducting surveillance or reconnaissance, and we do not consider any of the activities we observed as suspicious." And then furthermore, in terms of how much knowledge these tourists could have actually gotten from their visits, the chief of police also made a point to mention that, quote, "At no time did the group appear in any tunnels that would have led them to the U.S. Capitol. In addition, the tunnels leading to the U.S. Capitol were posted with United States Capitol police officers, and admittance to the U.S. Capitol without a member of Congress was not permitted on January the 5th of 2021. Meaning that in his professional assessment and in the opinion of the Capitol Police Force, the implication that Congressman Loudmilk was doing some kind of reconnaissance operation for January the 6th is just not true. Instead, the Capitol Police's official assessment was that this was a simple tour that Congressman Loudmilk was giving to his constituents, one of whom happened to be at the Capitol the next day as an alleged rioter. But hey, these details don't get people to tune in to primetime January 6th hearings. Regardless, Congressman Rodney Davis, who's the ranking member on the Committee of House Administration, he's also the recipient of this letter from the Capitol Police Force, he slammed the J6 committee for using the media to smear one of their colleagues without proof of actual wrongdoing. Here's what he said after receiving this letter from the Capitol Police Chief. Quote, "This is what we knew all along. We knew there was no Republican who led anybody who breached the Capitol on a reconnaissance tour leading up to January 6th. I had my team go through the tapes back in January to verify that because one of my colleagues, Mikey Sherrill, she started this rumor that somehow Republicans were taking people on reconnaissance tours. She said she used her military training to recognize this. Well, you know what? There is no evidence that that's ever happened." And then likewise, former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins, you might remember him as playing a key role in unraveling the Russian collusion narrative. Well, here's how he described this new situation. Quote, "I'm wondering how many of these political writers, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these folks, are actually lining up to give retractions. Let's just be honest. They buy any narrative they can to impugn conservative congressmen, to malign Donald Trump, to make this event that they're trying to pin basically on the conservative movement. And they're willing to destroy lives, really to do it without actually investigating, without reporting." Now, if you would like to read these two letters in their entirety, or if you'd like to watch the video surveillance footage for yourself, I'll throw all those links down into the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that you take a super quick moment to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. That way you can get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed every single weekday. And now, since we've spent so much time discussing Congressman Loudmilk, I thought it was worth mentioning that while I was down in Florida, I actually had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Congressman Loudmilk about... Sorry, what's this? Of course it's Sekur, because we use the Sekur app, which is the sponsor of today's episode, as well as an awesome email and message service provider that actually cares about your privacy. Now listen, it's no big secret that our data is being mined and remined all the time. In fact, there was a recent study that was published in the year 2020, which found that 155 million Americans, likely including you and me, have suffered some form of data breach. And frankly, that's only what's publicly known. However, all those past problems with privacy issues and data mining, well, that can be an issue of the past, because moving forward, you can use the Sekur app, which both your messages, your emails, and your phone calls can remain private. That's because they have their servers and their data centers located in Switzerland instead of in the US or China or Russia. And why does that matter? Because Switzerland has the strictest data privacy laws in the entire world, and they are not subject to the intrusive Cloud Act. Now, what I love the most about the Sekur app is that they don't collect my data, they don't mine my data, they don't mine the data and phone numbers of my friends and family. Everything is private. And best of all, at least in my opinion, this does not work with your big tech email provider just because it is not secure. And so check it out. You can head on over to Sekur.com, and if you use promo code Roman, you can get 25% off. And frankly, their rates are not even that expensive. It only starts with $5 for the messenger and $10 for the email and messenger combo. And best of all, they offer a 7-day free trial. Now, since we've spent so much time discussing Congressman Loudmilk, I thought it was worth noting that while I was down in Florida a few months back, I actually had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Congressman Loudmilk in regards to his thoughts on the dangers of nationalizing America's election system. Take a listen. So the first issue I wanted to discuss with you is this move by the Democrats to federalize the national elections. Can you give your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, it's unconstitutional, okay? The Constitution is very clear when it comes to election law, that is reserved for the state legislators. Election integrity was one of the top concerns of our founders, and that's why it was written in the way it is that the Constitution uses the term like manner and place and time of election is to be set by the state legislatures. The idea is each state is unique. You look at different states, California versus Georgia or versus Alaska, which has a lot of remote areas. If the federal government sets a law, it's a one-size-fits-all. It's not going to fit into that arena. The other aspect of it is the states created the federal government, not the other way. When you look at the Constitution, the 10th Amendment of the Constitution says the powers that aren't given to the federal government are reserved to the state and then to the people. That's a reverse process of how our nation was created. The people have rights and powers, rights given by God, and the power to protect those rights. Then they combined those rights to create the state governments, and then the state governments combined and said, we'll give some of this power to create a federal government. So the elections, even federal elections, are left to the states. What happened in the last election, even in Georgia, is changes were made to election law that were not made by the legislative bodies, such as Georgia, the sending out of applications for absentee ballots to every registered voter. That was not provided for by law. So the legislature did not make that change. The Secretary of State did by himself. Also, the placement of ballot boxes. There was never a place for ballot boxes that were, or that change was never made by the legislature. That was just something in response to COVID that the Secretary of State did. Now we're seeing that those ballot boxes may have had a problem of election integrity, of ballot harvesting. And so just today, a report has come out that the Elections Board is extending subpoena power to the Secretary of State to look into ballot harvesting. The problem is, yes, you can find fraud. It's hard to find in elections, but you're never going to find it till way after an election is certified and done. And so I think Georgia has taken a huge step in the right direction on election integrity with the election law the Senate passed and Governor Kemp has signed. So we've taken a broad step forward. We need to keep looking at it. What is it that else we need to do to protect the ballots? Georgia has a history of having election issues, but it's county by county. Look at Fulton County. Every election, Fulton County has problems. So when you hear people on the left say, well, we shouldn't question this election at all, well, they have questioned every election, prior to this one, especially certain counties. Even in the 2020 election primary, the mainstream media was already complaining about Fulton County and that there was voter suppression going on. But then we get into the general election, which their side won, well, then everything was fine. Everything wasn't fine. We do need to continue to be vigilant in cleaning up our voter rolls. You need to make sure that people aren't registered that no longer live in the state, that have passed away. There's an old joke that just how many people from the cemetery are actually voting. That's an old joke in Georgia because it goes back. There's history to that. And so the Supreme Court has already ruled that states not only can but should be purging their voter rolls. But we still see the left complaining about it, is that it's somehow suppressing voter rights if you remove someone who has passed away from a voter roll. So these are the types of things that we have to be consistent doing, and that inevitably will lead us back to people feeling that there is integrity in our election.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about HB1 that we discussed in that interview, we actually published a phenomenal point-by-point breakdown of all the provisions inside of it, meaning how it would actually change our election system here in America. If you'd like to read that analysis, I'll throw it also down into the description box below this video for you to check out. Now lastly, as I mentioned at the very top of this episode, if you would like to watch an exclusive interview between myself and the lead researchers of the film 2000 Mules, well, you can do so over on Epoch TV. It was frankly a great interview, and among the many topics that we discussed was the fact that according to their research, these ballot mule operations were actually funded by Obama-linked NGOs that collectively poured billions of dollars into what the researchers refer to as local insurgencies throughout the entire nation. Now again, it was an hour-long interview. It was awesome, and if you want to check it out in its entirety, you can do so over on Epoch TV, which is our awesome no-censorship video platform. The link will be right there at the very top of the description box. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.